Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Tuesday, the 14th day of February, 2023, Tuesday of the 6th week of the year, the 6th week in Ordinary Time. Because it's February the 14th, it is St. Valentine's Day. A happy Valentine's Day to everyone. The red bowler has come out, as well as my little heart necklacey thing. As you can see, I think it is sparkling like that, okay? But it is not just St. Valentine's Day, and on the church's calendar is actually the memorial of Saints Cyril and Methodius, the apostles, the evangelists to the Slavic people. Valentine is on the Roman calendar, but was never ever high on the list. It was always Cyril and Methodius, but being connected with love and candies and chocolates makes you more powerful than somebody who was the apostle to the Slavic peoples. However, today, on this day especially, when we remember Cyril and Methodius, again, we remember that they were the apostles to all the Slavic peoples, which would be not just Russians, but Ukrainians also, all of the Belarusians, all of the people who occupy the eastern part of Europe, the Eurasian Peninsula, those kinds of the Eurasian Plateau, those kinds of peoples were the ones who received the gospel. And so we continue to pray that the work of the gospel and that the power of the gospel continue to transform their lives and allow them to seek peace and goodwill together. Coming to you this morning, though, from the Great Green Slope, our labyrinth there in the background, the bell to Carillon of the chapel right behind me, and then the community center right over there. So on this day that we honor Cyril and Methodius and their great work, again, two brothers who went out among basically barbaric peoples and tried to and succeeded in bringing them the gospel. We hear from Genesis, continuing the story of Genesis here, after all the tumults and everything else like that between a garden episode with a snake and an apple and then Cain killing Abel. God now is just very unhappy with what God has created. Again, which is like, again, God is just regretting, a God who regrets having made creation, and so God decides to destroy it, which again is God's privilege to be able to do so. It's God's choice to be able to do so. And so God does with the beginning of the flood, but again singling out Noah as the one who was righteous, whom God will save to repopulate the earth. But again, with one Adam, one Eve, this whole idea of repopulating an earth does become sort of a sticky issue. And so how is that actually done? In any way, we just come to the first part of this this narrative of Noah and the ark, with Noah having built the ark and the rains coming. Now, what will transpire afterwards, we get to see later on as we move through the week. It is interesting, though, that again, where God is setting out to destroy everything except for saving Noah, the responsorial psalm today is God, the Lord blesses his people with peace. How is that relatable? That's a good question to that first reading. But again, this is where the complexity of God kind of shines through on this day with these single sets of readings. It doesn't get any better when we come to Mark's gospel and what it is that Jesus is doing in Mark's gospel as we continue to move through Mark's gospel. It just begins with the apostles forgetting to bring bread as they're going on a journey, which can be quite disturbing and anxiety building because you need bread. But it's not for communion; it was just basically to eat. But here we have Jesus responding to the situation with "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, the yeast of the Pharisees and of Herod," and not using their leaven and not using their things. And then the apostles don't know why Jesus comes out with that, which is, again, yes, for all of us who are listening to that, we probably wonder why Jesus comes out with that statement to the situation of a lack of bread to eat. And then Jesus says that they're so stupid, and he basically chides them and scolds them in some ways, by then referring to the feeding of the 5,000, and again, how many wicker baskets were filled afterwards. There were 12, and how many loaves were broken? It was 7 loaves. And he's just like, don't you understand any of this? Well, no, it's not really clear. What are you getting at, Jesus? So this is again where this interesting kind of confounding speech of Jesus in Mark's gospel, these kinds of secrets that he sort of lets out here, there, and everywhere, and expects the people to understand it, expects the people to understand what it is that he's trying to get across. For us, kind of looking back at this, again, it's the idea that again, yeast helps make something become something. It gives dough the ability to rise and then to become bread. And so it creates. In the same way, Jesus is coming to create something new. So the 12 wicker baskets, again, a whole new people, like the 12 tribes of Israel, a whole new people is created by the appearance of the Messiah. And the 7 loaves, the 7 days of creation, actually 6 days of creation, 1 day of rest, again, which is not just creating a new people, but creating the world anew, transforming the world anew, and making the world into what it is that God intended it to be from the beginning, giving us that direction, giving us that guidance, giving us that hope. Sometimes that's difficult to see in what we experience in our lives, what we experience in this world, because there are so many confusing things, so much distress, so much tragedy, so much sorrow, that we lose sight of a God who constantly creates, a God who constantly makes all things new. This is what we must constantly always be aware of ourselves, being able to witness to that, being able to point it out where it is happening, help others to see it, and help us help what it is that God intends for creation to finally come to fruit and to bear fruit that will enlighten and enrich the world. And may the Lord give you his peace.